Every morning, millions of people close their eyes, sit in silence, and try to meditate. They follow the apps, they count the breaths, they do everything the guided voice tells them to do. And then they open their eyes, and nothing in their life has changed. Same anxiety, same financial ceiling, same relationships that go nowhere. Joe Dispenza says there is a reason for that, and it has nothing to do with discipline or consistency. It is that the version of you who sits down on that cushion is running the exact same neurological program as the version of you who is stressed out, broke, and stuck. You are meditating as the old self, and the old self cannot create a new life. But here is what makes this really interesting. Dispenza did not just come up with this theory sitting in a library somewhere. He arrived at it through one of the most painful experiences a human being can go through. And once you understand what happened to him, the rest of this is going to hit very differently. In 1986, Joe Dispenza was competing in a triathlon in Palm Springs, California. He was on the cycling portion when an SUV going about 55 miles per hour hit him from behind. The impact shattered 6 vertebrae in his spine. He was 23 years old. The doctors told him his only option was a major surgery called Harrington rod surgery. They wanted to fuse his spine together with stainless steel rods. Without the surgery, they said he would probably never walk again. But with it, he would lose most of his mobility for life. So Dispenza made a decision that most people thought was insane. He said no to the surgery, he checked himself out of the hospital, lay face down on a bed, and decided he was going to use his mind to rebuild his spine. He spent 9.5 weeks doing nothing but mentally rehearsing, vertebra by vertebra, what a healthy spine would look and feel like. He visualized it in extraordinary detail over and over for hours every day. And 10 weeks after being told he might never walk again, he got up and walked out. No surgery, no rods, no wheelchair. Now, you can believe that story or not. What happened next is what matters for this conversation. That experience sent Dispenza down a path that would eventually lead him to scan thousands of brains and discover something that most meditation teachers still do not talk about. Here's the core of what Dispenza found, and it's both simple and uncomfortable. Most people sit down to meditate, and they bring their entire identity with them. They bring their name, their problems, their memories, their fears, their frustrations. They sit on the cushion as a person who is anxious about money, or lonely, or frustrated with their career, and then they try to think peaceful thoughts. But the body does not care about peaceful thoughts. The body is running a chemical program. Dispenza explains it like this. Every emotion you feel regularly becomes a chemical state. If you have spent 20 years feeling anxious, your cells are literally addicted to the chemistry of anxiety. Your body does not know the difference between a real threat and a remembered one. It just keeps producing cortisol and adrenaline because that is what it is used to. That is its normal. So when you sit down to meditate and you still feel like the same person with the same problems, your body is flooding you with the same chemicals it always does. You might calm the surface for 20 minutes, but underneath, the operating system has not changed. The program is still running, and when you open your eyes, the program takes over again. This is what Dispenza calls meditating as the old self. And, according to his research, it is what the vast majority of people are doing every single day. But this is where it gets really interesting. He didn't just identify the problem, he figured out what the tiny percentage of people who actually get results are doing differently. Dispenza started running week-long meditation retreats. He brought in researchers, EEG equipment, and brain mapping technology. He scanned people before and after. What he found was that the people who experienced real, measurable changes in their brain and body were doing something fundamentally different from everyone else. They weren't meditating as themselves. Let me explain what that actually means, because it sounds abstract, but it's very concrete when you break it down. Most people meditate to relax. They want to feel less stressed, so they close their eyes and try to calm down. That's meditation as a coping tool. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's like putting a bandage on a wound that never heals. You feel better for a bit, then the wound opens back up. The people in Dispenza's research who got extraordinary results were doing something different. They were using the meditation to become a completely different person, not metaphorically, neurologically. What they did was disconnect from their known identity. They stopped being the person with the job and the relationship and the bank account. They stopped being someone with a history. And they entered what Dispenza calls the generous present moment, which is a state where the brain is no longer processing the past or anticipating the future. It's producing a completely different set of brainwaves. In this state, the brain shifts from high beta, which is the stress and survival frequency most people live in all day, into alpha and then theta. Theta is the frequency your brain produces just before you fall asleep. It's also the frequency associated with deep hypnosis and reprogramming. And in Dispenza's research, this is where everything changes. Because in theta, the analytical mind, the part of you that says this won't work and be realistic and who do you think you are, goes quiet. The subconscious mind opens up. And whatever you rehearse in that state, the body begins to accept as real. This is why Dispenza's retreats produce results that look impossible to outsiders. People walking in with chronic pain and walking out without it. People whose blood work changes in 4 days. People whose gene expression shifts measurably after a single week of intense meditation. But here's the catch, and this is the part that frustrates a lot of people. You can't think your way into this state. That's the whole point. The number one reason people fail at Dispenza's method isn't that they don't try hard enough. It's that they try too hard. They sit down and they think about the new life they want. They visualize the house, the relationship, the money. They think about it really intensely, and then they wonder why nothing happens. Dispenza says this is because thinking about what you want keeps you in a state of separation from it. You're here wanting something that's over there. And that wanting, that longing, that hoping is itself a chemical state. It tells your body that you don't have the thing. And the body responds to chemistry, not to wishes. So the people who get results aren't thinking about a new life. They're feeling a new life before it happens. They're generating the emotional state of already having what they want, not as a visualization exercise, but as a full body experience. Their heart rate changes, their breathing changes, their brain waves shift. Dispenza measured this in real time. The people whose brain scans showed the most dramatic changes were the ones who reported feeling intense emotion during meditation. Gratitude, love, joy, freedom. Not as concepts, as physical experiences in the body. And here's why that matters so much. Because the body, as Dispenza explains, doesn't know the difference between an experience that's happening in the external world and one that's being generated internally. If you can produce the emotional signature of a new reality with enough intensity and enough repetition, the body starts to believe it's already living in that reality. The chemistry changes, the gene expression changes, the neural networks reorganize. That's not mysticism. That's what showed up on the brain scans. But most people never get there. And there's a very specific reason why. The biggest obstacle Dispenza identified is what he calls the body pulling you back to the known self. Here's how it works in practice. You sit down, you start to quiet your mind. Maybe you even start to feel a shift. And then, right at the edge of something new, your body revolts. You get restless, your knee hurts. You suddenly remember something you need to do. You feel anxious for no reason. An itch appears out of nowhere. That's not random. According to Dispenza, that's the body fighting to maintain the familiar chemical state. Your cells are used to a certain cocktail of stress hormones, and when you start to starve them of that cocktail, they send urgent signals to the brain. Get up, move, think about your problems, do anything to get back to the familiar. And most people obey. They open their eyes, check their phone, and the old program resumes. They never push through that barrier to the other side. Dispenza calls this moment the river of change, the point where the old self is dying and the new self has not been born yet. It is deeply uncomfortable. It feels like something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. Something is actually finally going right. The people who break through this barrier, the ones who sit with the discomfort and keep going, are the ones whose brain scans light up like a different person walked into the room. Dispenza has documented this thousands of times now. So what does this actually look like in practice? If you have been meditating the wrong way, what does the right way feel like? Dispenza's approach works like this. You start by becoming aware of how you normally think and feel throughout the day, not judging it, just noticing. What emotions run on autopilot? What thoughts repeat? What does your body default to when you're not paying attention? Then, in meditation, the goal is not to relax. The goal is to separate from that entire identity. You stop being the person with the name and the story. You become pure awareness. No body, no thing, no one, nowhere, no time. Those are Dispenza's words. He repeats them constantly because that's the state where change becomes possible. Once you reach that state, that's when you begin to create. You don't visualize from a place of wanting. You generate emotion from a place of already having. You feel the gratitude of the relationship that already exists. You feel the freedom of the financial abundance that's already your reality. You feel it so completely that your body doesn't know you're making it up. And you hold that state, you marinate in it, not for 3 minutes while a meditation app plays ocean sounds, for 45 minutes, an hour. However long it takes for the body to surrender its addiction to the old chemistry and start accepting the new one. This is why most people think meditation doesn't work. They've been doing a 20-minute relaxation exercise and comparing it to what is essentially a neurological reprogramming protocol. It's like comparing a jog around the block to an Olympic training camp. Now, I want to be clear about something. There are many forms of meditation, and many of them have real, documented benefits. Mindfulness meditation reduces stress. Breathing exercises calm the nervous system. Body scans improve awareness. None of that is wrong. But what Dispenza is talking about is a different category of practice entirely. He's not interested in helping you feel a little calmer. He's interested in whether you can fundamentally change who you are at the level of your brain, your body, your chemistry, and your gene expression. And his data suggests that you can, but only if you stop meditating as the person you've been and start meditating as the person you want to become. The old self sits on the cushion hoping things will change. The new self sits on the cushion knowing they already have. That's the difference. And according to Dispenza, that difference is everything.